So if you've lived in Orlando your whole life like I have, you've come to love the city because it really is a beautiful city and a beautiful place to live, but you've also come to hate a few things about the city, and living here, like, there's a lot of things, a lot of pain points for people living here that they complain about when living in Orlando. And if you're looking to call this place home, if you're coming from somewhere else, I think these are things you really need to know before you make that move so you make the very best decision. Hey guys, this is Will, and today we are here in downtown Orlando. I really want to do this video to kind of emphasize what I do not like about Orlando. I think a lot of people living here will agree with me. I'm going to hope you will too. But before we get started, make sure to click that subscribe button down below if you love all the content I'm bringing you here in the Central Florida area. So let's talk about why I hate Orlando. First gripe about Orlando is, which I think most people are going to agree with me here, is the cost of living. There was recently a study that came out that said Orlando was the 8th most unaffordable metropolitan area in the country. And you would think, like, hey, we're here in Florida, Florida's so affordable. You hear this and you say, okay, well, yeah, let's move here and save all of this money compared to New York City or San Francisco, but Orlando's really not that far behind. The reason being is our median income here for a single person is only $28,000, and for a household, a little bit better at almost $60,000. But when you factor in rent, for most places, a single bedroom is hitting at about $1,300 right now. 2 bedrooms going even higher, and then with our median home price being $325,000, for most people, you know, unless you're putting a large amount of money down, you're looking at a $1,700 to $2,100 note. So when you factor that into the total money that the people are making, it's slowly becoming more and more unaffordable for the people that live here. I think this primarily ties into the fact that we don't really have a strong job market here. Recently, Disney announced they were going to be opening one of their headquarters in Lake Nona, and they are one of our largest employers here. But when you really think about it, a lot of those jobs are going to be service jobs. They're not really high-paying jobs. So when we talk about a strong job market, I think of places like Dallas where I go, and the home prices are kind of running in line with the fact they have companies like Goldman Sachs there, Merrill Lynch. Orlando really kind of lacks that strong corporate job market. They do have good companies here like ADP, Deloitte, and once again, Disney, Lockheed Martin. You do have those level jobs, but I don't think there's enough to quite justify how quickly our prices are rising. And if you're coming from somewhere up north or even out west in California, you know, it's a lot easier to afford a home here. I just recently helped to buy a home here from Canada, and they just used the equity from that home to buy their home here, $500,000 cash. And a lot of people here in the Orlando area that are living here and working these jobs can't really compete with that. So for the average person making the median income, it's becoming more and more unaffordable. And that's why you're really starting to see people get pushed out to places like Davenport. It used to be Kissimmee, but now Kissimmee's even going up in prices. So you're getting outlets to St. Cloud, Davenport, Point Siena. Some people are going as far north as Sanford and Mount Dora. So unfortunately, the Orlando metropolitan area has quickly become this place that's unaffordable for the residents living here. I think most people here can agree with me when I say that. And working with buyers here, it's kind of tough sometimes because a $325,000 home is going to be an average home here. A lot of times it's not going to be your most updated home. It's not going to have all the fancy bells and whistles that a lot of people maybe 3-4 years ago could have got with that same amount of money. So it's one thing to really take a note. If you live here and you don't already have a great job coming in, the job market isn't crazy strong and the cost of living is rising. It's getting comparable to places like New York City, San Francisco, which to me is absolutely absurd. Gripe number 2, and this is a personal opinion because I am a foodie, like I've said multiple times on this channel. I love trying out new different places to eat, but I feel like because we have a strong tourism factor here, Orlando kind of plays it safe sometimes. What I mean by that is you have so many chains here, and for a lot of people that is okay if you don't eat out a bunch. Like, you know, maybe going to Ale House or TGI Fridays is great for you, but for me, on the other hand, I really do like trying new foods, smaller restaurants, small businesses, because to me, they typically have the best food. And while there are a ton of great spots, I definitely don't mean to undercut any of the great food we do have here in Orlando. I could give you a whole list of spots. I do think when you compare it to even Tampa or recently, like when I went to Fort Lauderdale, like there's just such a variety of food here in other cities in Florida that makes it kind of tough for me to say that Orlando has the best food. And I really don't think it does. So I really, you know, wish that there was a larger incorporation of small food businesses here. And obviously the pandemic has played a role in that and decreasing those. But I think over the past few years, that's been one of my big gripes. Like, I want to try something new almost every time I go out. And while like I said, there's a ton of places to go in Orlando, I think it really suffers from not having even more, if that's even possible. So my third point here, and some people might disagree with me on this, but I do think it's important to kind of note, because you have to see both sides of it, is the tourism here in Orlando. We have Walt Disney World here, we have Universal Studios, SeaWorld, Aquatica, Volcano Bay. Tourism is one of the largest things of our local economy. It's a driving force, really. It provides a lot of service jobs, they employ thousands of people here in the Central Florida area. So it would be, not to knock on the tourism that we get here, it's great, it keeps people employed, it makes people want to come visit here. But unfortunately, I think what happens here is the city itself, so not like private development, but more so the public development, kind of caters around these companies when certain parts of the city do need help. And a lot of the private development now, especially residential, is more costly. You don't have a whole bunch of affordable housing here. So a lot of these private developments here, in terms of your new neighborhoods, your new communities, all of that is going to be a little bit more expensive. So I can see why some residents here are kind of upset that, hey, we pump all this money into tourism, but some of our communities are pretty neglected. I think that's a really unfortunate thing about the city that isn't really talked about too much. Some people agree with me, some people won't, some people say it's a good thing. Don't want to start a divisive fight in the comments, but I just think that sometimes, even though it's a great thing for our economy and it's obviously probably the foundation of our economy here, maybe we can divert some of those funds into actually helping our communities. So number 4, which really isn't exclusive to Orlando, but kind of in the large cities in Florida in general, but I live in Orlando, so I have to talk about it, is the traffic. 408 is not too bad, and that's our highway that goes from the west to the east side of Orlando. However, the I-4 corridor, whether you're going north or whether you're going south, I-4 east or I-4 west, sucks. Like, if you catch that in rush hour on a weekend and you're trying to go out to like a Dr. Phillips area or even go up north like a Winter Park, the traffic is horrible there, and I think they've been working on it so much, there's so much construction that it slows down traffic. My whole life I've known the roads to be under construction, and it feels like they haven't really done a lot to relieve the traffic. And then when we talk about our smaller roads, we have places like John Young Parkway, which traffic can be abysmal at certain points. I mean, I can name a million others, but I think the infrastructure here definitely needs a lot of work to relieve the pressure, because a lot of these communities might only have 2-lane roads going in and out of the community. So if everyone has to fit on a 2-lane road, it can suck. I live in Lake Nona, and Narcoossee gets extremely bad bottleneck traffic there because there's only a 2-lane road going up and down. You have a lot of people living here, and I always joke about this. I say Orlando is a big city that does not know it's big. Orange County is one of the largest populations in the entire country, but when you come here, you really don't feel like it until you realize there's 1,000 people on the same 2-lane road here, and it takes you forever to get from point A to point B. So I don't think it's as bad as somewhere like Atlanta or Los Angeles, because that traffic was horrible, but I do think that it can be a lot better if we focus a little bit more on infrastructure and kind of relieving the stress that we have on our roads here.
Dude, the weather like sucks today. It's literally...
I should have put the weather as one, but another point. Okay guys, so my very last point here is going to be the home variety. If you show a lot of homes and you love architecture like I do, it can break your heart here in Orlando sometimes. And that's primarily because I think Orlando suffers from the period in times where development has taken place. So a lot of places you can go in Orlando, you can tell when things are built. You can tell a community in the 80s, like where my grandmother lives. You can tell a community from the 90s, like where my grandfather lives. You can also tell communities that were built in the early 2000s when they paused a while during the recession. You can tell homes that have built from 2013 to 2017. And I think the downside of that here in Orlando is where I've gone to cities like Dallas, and I drive through the neighborhoods, and I'm like, wow. And that's kind of like almost anywhere there. Obviously, it's not the whole city, but when comparing that to Orlando, it kind of sucks because you drive through a lot of these communities, especially the ones built in the 90s and early 2000s, and the entire community looks the same. The colors have kind of dulled out from the paint. Some homeowners don't really keep up with the appearance of their property here, which is one of my gripes. Even in your nicer areas, you go to places like Windermere, and it has like that gaudy 2005 look. Sorry, my buddy behind the camera loves Windermere, so he's probably a little bit mad at me about that. But I think that it's a combination of people not really updating their homes too much and developers building like monolithic communities where there isn't a whole bunch of architectural variety. Now, that isn't for the whole city per se. Like right now we're here in Thornton Park, and there's a beautiful variety of homes. Like you can see a colonial home, American traditional, like you can Mediterranean, and that's in a lot of really nice communities we have here. I would say Winter Park has the same kind of feel. Dr. Phillips gets that feel. Windermere gets that feel. But I think as a whole, like, you know, the more median price communities, more like average price communities, they kind of all look the same. And it's, you can tell it's just a large inventory build. And I think it's kind of sad sometimes where you can't get a whole bunch of variety unless you're spending $1 million. However, on the other side of that, if you are spending over $500,000 or $600,000, you probably get a home that is very appealing to the eye. You can go through communities where they don't all look the same. But even in a lot of new construction communities now, I always joke on the channel, I say it's a Florida style home because it doesn't really have like a style to it. It's just a blocky structure. They throw some paint on, you get a shingle roof, and that's it. And I think you see that a lot in the new construction communities even now, unless once again you're spending that pretty penny. I think Lake Nona has really broken the mold. It's, you know, where I live, and they have these beautiful modern homes that are different. Like you go through Laureate Park and the homes actually look different, and I love that. I think Winter Park has a lot of that, especially with a lot of their single lot developments there. But I think as a whole, Orlando suffers from there isn't too much variety in the homes. So I wish there was a little bit more variety, just because as an architecture nerd and I love seeing beautiful homes. It's kind of part of the reason I got into real estate too, is to help people, you know, get that American dream of purchasing a home, but also because I like homes. Like many of you, I was an HGTV nut at like 14 years old. So I really do like home variety. So I think it sucks that most of Orlando, most of the homes that people buy here are going to be like pretty monolithic homes that you're going to get in the entire community. I don't think there's a whole bunch of variation there. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the reasons why I hate Orlando. Once again, I've lived here my whole life. I love the city, and people are moving here for an obvious reason. It's a great place to live, but I do think you need to know the bad sides of it too. And I think as realtors, sometimes we don't explain the full picture just because some people are just trying to get that sale out of you. But if you enjoyed this content, please click that subscribe button down below. Give me a like, give me a comment, tell me how you feel about it. And if you want a realtor in the area as cool as myself, I'd love to be your realtor of choice. You can give me a call down below. I'm gonna leave my email and text right there along with my buyer intake form. So I will catch you guys next time.